got a special treat for you today. You are going to get to chat and learn from a principal, a school principal in the great state of California. Angie Balius is going to join us and talk about the importance and the significance of social media in her elementary school of about 350 students. She's going to talk about how she uses social media to connect to her families. And then she's going to dive deep into her College Wear Wednesdays. It is a whole like curriculum, learning how to write letters and do research and write thank you notes and get some awesome swag and promote future options, thinking about the future. I love this interview. I learned about it when I was in Garden Grove. I do a social media ambassador program with them, got to talk to her in person, and then said, Angie, I want you on my podcast so we can share this with others. So you're going to want to pay attention because she is sharing some great posts and a slide deck of how she does this in her school. She's sharing that in the show notes. Now, before we get started, hey, if you are a listener of this podcast, which obviously you are because you're listening, have you left a review? I would love a 5-star review. If you don't think it's a 5-star podcast, don't leave me a 5-star review, but leave me a review because it really helps showcase the value you're getting from this podcast so that we can impact more school communicators across the country and literally around the world. So if you can take just 3 or 4 minutes to leave me a review on your favorite place to listen, I'd be so grateful. All right, let's get into this week's K-12 PR tip. All right, today's K-12 PR tip is simply a little note about using video in your social media strategy. Obviously, there are reels. They are the vertical format, usually anywhere from 7 seconds up to a minute 30 when you're using reels on Instagram and Facebook. But there's also other videos that you are sharing. And I was just talking with a school leader who wanted to share a video on their upcoming bond or referendum ballot question. Okay. And they're going to be showcasing some information about what the school needs as far as updates. And it was like, well, the video has talking on it. So that's all we need, right? We don't need to have basically a caption, a post to go along with the video. We'll just have the video. That is not true. Okay. We need to let people know why they should listen or what they're going to learn by listening and not just share the picture. Now, it's a little less critical when you're talking about reels, although there is usually a caption that goes along with your video. But when you are sharing other longer form video, your caption is going to tell people why they should watch. Because otherwise, guess what? They're going to scroll on by. You know why? They don't even have the volume on. Okay. And if it's not real exciting or really apparent about what the video is about, they are not going to watch it. Remember, we are competing for attention and people are scrolling very quickly through their social media profiles. We want to make sure that we tell them why they should pay attention, why they should watch, why they should turn their volume on. So think about that when you think about your video strategy. And now let's get to this week's interview. That was the K-12 PR tip. Now we're getting an interview with Miss Angie Balius. Let's get started. Good morning, Angie Balius. Welcome to the podcast.
Good morning. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, we've been in person a few times, and now we get to finally do this podcast interview. So why don't you share your background and your work as a principal in the Garden Grove Unified School District there at Stanley Elementary?
Absolutely. I've actually been in Garden Grove for 28 years. I was a K-6 classroom teacher for 18 of those years. And then now I've been in administration for a while. And this is my 3rd year at Stanley Elementary as the principal. And I couldn't be more proud. It's a great school, amazing families, and I love our students.
Can you tell me a little bit about the size of your elementary school and then the size of Garden Grove?
Garden Grove's a really large district. I don't know our exact numbers, so I'm going to have to come back to that one. Garden Grove's a big district, but Stanley is considered a smaller elementary school. We have 350 students,
Okay.
which is just about the perfect size. I know almost every student by first name and families, and so we just have a great community family feel to our school.
Yeah. And what grades are in your elementary?
We go from TK, which are our 4-year-olds in our pre-kinder program, all the way to 6th grade.
Okay. When's your first day of school?
August 12th.
Okay. By the time this airs, you're already starting, but we're recording this ahead of time. So, gosh, thanks for fitting this in because I know you got a million things to do. So, tell me a little bit about how social media fits in your role.
Well, I loved going through your training that we had last year that kind of talked about how do we celebrate and engage our families. And I really want a way for all of our families to feel connected. So I try to do like little pictures, just kind of showing what's happening in the classroom because we know our parents work and they can't be here for the in and out. And I like to use our social media as a jumping off point for parents to have conversations, maybe at dinner time like, hey, what happened at school today, right? Every kid's normal reaction is nothing. And so by having pictures, like they could say, oh, I noticed that you guys talked about the garden today at school, or tell me about this, or tell me about that. And it just gives parents a jumping off point to have those pictures to kind of facilitate those conversations. And it could be as simple as, hey, kids in the cafeteria at lunchtime, and they can talk about what they had for lunch or who they sat next to.
Yeah. So, are you primarily posting on your social media pages for the school?
Yeah, so I tend to do the social media, but I ask the teachers to send me pictures. So
Okay.
just, hey, something's fun happening in your classroom. One, I want to be in the classroom as much as possible so I can see what's happening with our students. But two, if I can't be everywhere all at once, then the teachers are great about sending me pictures and saying, hey, we did this really cool math lesson, or hey, in science today, we did this and it went really well. And so the teachers are even celebrating their successes with the students. And we have 3 goals in Garden Grove Unified, and everything we do kind of ties back to that goal, whether it's academic or whether it's personal skills or whether it's lifelong success. So we kind of try in everything that we do to really focus in and make those goals visible for our students and their families. And so we just kind of tie back to that. And again, I think it helps parents to feel connected to school and to have those conversation starters.
Yeah. So, what channels are you posting on? Is it primarily Facebook? Are you doing Instagram too, or what do
I
you?
post to Instagram and it's linked to our Facebook.
Okay.
Um, Unfortunately, our link broke last February, and I didn't realize that until I was working with our district PIO. And I was like, Abby, you haven't posted anything about Stanley lately. And she's like, you haven't posted anything since February. And I'm like, I post every day. And so we figured out that the link had been severed, but it's been corrected. So we'll start this year off on a great note. So we just use Insta and Facebook, and we found that that's been good.
Mhm.
I don't have time to do threads or to do, any of those others. And I don't think our families do either. So we'll just kind of keep it simple. And really, we're going to want to balance that social media and just like in-person connections.
Yeah, and you mentioned I'll be coming to visit you again in September. We have a social media ambassador program, and that's where we met in person. And I learned about what we're going to talk a little bit about today with your college program. But that's been really helpful. I've loved, being able to see the stories that you guys are all sharing. And so we've done some in person, and then we do monthly calls, little challenges, and things like that. Since you've really kind of started to up your storytelling, what impact has social media made for your school?
I think really just showing that social media can be used for good and that we can make positive connections and highlighting all of those celebrations. I think that sometimes social media gets a bad rap. And I think if we can show our students how to use social media to positively impact change, it can be a very powerful tool for them and
Yeah.
not just a place of, comparison.
Yeah, I feel like I'm just listening to myself talk right now, Angie, because that's something that we always tell kids what not to do on social media, or even parents, right? Adults don't always use it in the right way, but it's like, gosh, it's such a tool that can be used for that positivity. And you've already talked a little bit about, creating that connection and letting the families really have a starting point with their students. So I think that's so powerful. So let's dive in. You have a great college connection program, and I think some of my listeners are going to want to share this with leaders at their school. So can you tell me about it?
So we had started something, focusing in on our AVID strategies and helping to connect with goal 3, which is a little harder for elementary schools, right? We're talking about lifelong success, college and career readiness. And, 4 is a little early to be talking about, what college do you want to go to? So it's not about that, but it's about thinking about our future. And it's about making connections with kids when they're young, just to be forward thinking, right? So my parents never asked, are you going to college? My parents always asked me, what college are you going to? And I think that little shift in language is really big. And so we want our kids to think about the future. So every Wednesday we do College Wear Wednesday. And I just noticed that a lot of kids weren't participating. They weren't connecting with it. It wasn't resonating with them, right? So all the teachers had their college gear. But I might have 3 or 4 kids that were wearing their shirts. And so what I did was I went into our 5th grade and our 6th grade classrooms, and I did a lesson where I talked to the kids about writing a letter and connecting with a college. So first they had to research a college or a school of their choice. It could be a junior college, it could be, a naval academy, it could be a specialty art school, fashion design, whatever it was that they wanted, as long as they could find a connection. And so I had the students look up the mascot, the school colors, the location. They had to find it on a map. Because I remember when I was looking at schools, originally I was a physical therapy major. And so I was looking at the best school for physical therapy, and it was in Indiana. And my best friend goes, do you know where that is? And so, we're looking at the map, and she's like, you've never been away from home. Like, are you going to be able to do this? And it snows there. And so it was important to me. And so I make the kids find it on a map. Where is this located? Is that something you want to do? And so the kids do all of their research and they find out. And then we go over like what is in a letter where they're asking, hey, so the letter format kind of goes, dear, admissions officer, I am a student at Stanley Elementary School. Our school does College Wear Wednesday, and I would love to represent your school at my school. Would you be willing to send me a pair of socks or a shirt or something where I could represent your school on campus? And so we've had a great response. Not every kid gets a letter back. Some kids get a letter back with like stickers or pencils. Some kids get back full swag, little knapsacks, sweatshirts, t-shirts, socks, all from the school. And I even had one of the chancellors reach out to me and say, thank you for doing this. Thank you for making a connection between our kids and a college going culture. And so it's, like I said, it's maybe 35 to 40% of the kids get something back. But for those kids, it's amazing. And for 100% of the kids, they've made a new connection and see why College Wear Wednesday is important.
Yeah. And gotten to do, I mean, it just ties into so many learning things. And especially in a day and age where, sometimes writing is a lost art, right? With letter writing and things like that. But the research, the map, the mascot. And what I can't help but think, I was just listening to a podcast this morning on UGC, user generated content. So user generated content is really powerful, especially for these colleges. And so, Angie, I don't know if you can use this in this year's letters, but if your kids get stuff back from that college, guess what you're going to do? You're going to share it on social media. You're probably going to tag them, or you're going to throw in a hashtag. And now all of a sudden, they've got that connection that, hey, we're investing in our students, and all over, whether it's a local school or beyond. And that type of marketing is so powerful. So I would imagine that you've had some success with sharing some of those. Hey, I got the sweatshirt and the socks and all of this. Tell me a little bit about that.
So we've had so much fun. We had a couple of posts that we did on our social media, and one of the things that I'm working on growing as a social media person is our hashtags and our connections. I like my little Stanley bubble. I'm really happy being this little Stanley bubble, and sometimes it makes me nervous to, tag Chapman University because they're big, and I worry about, like, are we getting the right bang for our buck? But I understand your perspective too. Like, Chapman wants that connection. Chapman wants to be able to show their investment in the future. And so I could see, being able to do that and help the kids connect. So we just did our posting more local, and then
Yep.
Garden Grove reposted it, and they, to kind of highlight the event. But it was just a cute picture of all the kids in their swag on our play structure. So it was really fun.
So do you said you do your college wear Wednesday? Is that every Wednesday?
Uh-huh.
Okay. And then I think some schools have given you multiple things. So then you're able to like share them with some of the younger kids too, right?
Yeah, so we've gotten, like I said, we've gotten knapsacks, we've gotten stickers, we've gotten Long Beach State was so kind. They gave us buttons. So we got a ton of buttons and like a ton of notepads. And so just really kind of promoting that swag and helping it to be visible on campus. And so it makes the kids excited when they're seeing it. And I've noticed our parents even getting involved. Like, I had a pair of twins in our TK program, and dad was an SC grad and mom was UCLA. And so, depending on who got the kids ready that morning, would be their outfit. And then Auntie went to UCI. So, like, it was just cute to see their outfits every Wednesday and just trying to take the pictures and post them. And then it's really just a conversation, right? Hey, I noticed you're wearing a University of Hawaii shirt today. So tell me about that. What made you wear that one? Oh, my grandma brought it back for me after vacation. And so, what a neat thing to have those connections with kids and talking about schools and what's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll link to a couple of the posts that you have shared that have kind of showcased the college wear Wednesdays. Now, if listeners want to get something like this started at their school, what kind of advice would you share?
I would say that definitely the key is in the writing of the letter.
Okay.
I make sure that my students handwrite the letters. Anyone can just type up a quick email and send it off. I want to make sure kids know how to address a letter. I pay for all the postage to get it sent out. Because, and so that's more expensive. But I feel like if you're going to take the time to write a letter and learn, I'm flabbergasted at to how many kids don't know how to address an envelope. What goes where. And so really kind of talking about these skills and then following it up with a thank you note. What if they do get something, hey, you now need to
Mhm.
say thank you. You need to write another note. You need to look for the address. You need to find these things. So just talking about those just general social skills. I would be happy to share the slide deck that I made that I use with the students if you think that would be helpful.
Yes.
That just kind of talks about, walks the kids through my lesson.
Okay.
I'm also involved in the UCI writing project. And so, like, being able to share stuff that's already made because I want people to have access and to be successful. And so I think that the more people we have helping kids with writing and to see real, authentic reasons for writing and how to use that, I think it's really powerful.
I love that. So yes, if I can get the slide deck, I'll put that in the show notes so people could take a look at it. And I love the fact that you are handwriting the letter and sending it out because in today's day and age, you guys, that little separator can be such a difference maker, right? Definitely using that. I'm just comparing this, I guess, to like my business. I read a book called A Thousand True Fans, and it's just like you don't need millions and millions of followers. You need like 1,000 true fans to have a successful business. And sometimes you have to do things that don't scale, right? And so, you're not reaching out to 700 schools for asking. You're just one per student. and you're handwriting that letter, then you're teaching them how to be grateful and writing that thank you letter, which you know, most adults probably need help with as well. um but yeah, definitely ties into so many learning opportunities. And then I'm sure when kids get stuff back, they are excited is probably an understatement.
Oh, it's so fun. And so we do like an unboxing
Okay.
when the kids get their envelopes or their packages. Like I'll walk into the class and be like, "Hey, special delivery, look what came in the mail." And one aunt, I have to tell you, she was so excited about this project and she was so worried that her niece's school had not written her back. So the aunt had gone on to Amazon and bought a bunch of swag and had brought it into school and had boxed it up. And so like it looked like it came from the university. And I delivered it to the classroom so that she had her sweatshirt and her thing because the aunt believed so much in the program and what we were doing. And she wanted that connection to be there. And so I just thought that was so cute that she wanted to make sure it happened for her niece. And but we do a big deal. And then, you know, we take a picture. And like I said, we don't discount any school. So we want to make sure we're including our local JCs and we want to make sure that we're highlighting different programs that are out there so that every student can feel represented and know like, hey, I went to this JC, here was this that I got from it. Our fifth graders go to one of our local JCs. They have a planetarium there. And so the kids were like, I'm going to wear the shirt I got from them when we go on our field trip. And, you know, just there's so much pride
Yeah.
and like, hey, I kind of like I earned this shirt, right? I
Right.
wrote the letter, I made the connection, here's what I have. So even the kids that get like just a pencil or a sticker, like at first are disappointed, right? Like, oh, I wanted a shirt. And then they'll see the kid that got like the sweatshirt and the backpack, and like they're like, hey, like I'm like, every school is different, you guys. We don't know what's going to happen. And then there's certain schools, like your bigger schools, SC, UCLA, we never hear back from them, but you know, like they've got so many
Right.
people fighting to get in, right? You have to really gauge who you're going to write to.
And JC, what does that stand for?
Oh, for us, it's the junior college.
Okay.
So maybe like a 2-year school.
Okay. Yep.
But some of those schools or our trade schools really have great programs that our kids are like, hey, Mrs. Bayless, I'm really into mechanics. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, you might want to look at this. Or Crafton College, Crafton Hills is a local school out here. It's a JC junior college, and they have a great fire program. So if you want to get into a fire academy, like that's a great place to go. So I try to recommend for the kids, like, look at this school. Or, hey, you love to play softball. Do you hope to play in college? Absolutely. I'm hoping to get a scholarship. Okay, well, let's look here. Let's do this. And so, what I love is when the kids will come up to me on the playground and they're like, Mrs. Bayless, do you know that the softball coach at this school is doing this and just got this award? And like, that's a great academic conversation. And they're feeling excited and looking at that future through a new
Mhm.
lens.
Yeah. So, honest question, and I kind of had prefaced you the as far as you know, I know not all kids are going to go to college, right? So, has there been any pushback from families or communities on having too large a focus on that college versus maybe other career options?
No, because I really feel like they could write to any school they wanted to. So, like letting them know, like if they're into fashion, we have a school out here called FITM, right? The Fashion Design Institute. They could write to them. But it's also looking at how much does that school cost? You know,
Mhm.
what do you need to do to go there? Or what do the graduates of those schools go on to do? What are some other options? And like I said, we don't just hit the big name 4-year Pac-10 schools. We're looking at a variety of schools. I have a lot of friends whose kids have just gone to college, right? And so they're all like, oh, ASU, or oh, my child's going to this school for this reason, or oh, hey, in Oregon, they have this. And then we talk to the students about, you know, sometimes schools, you have to pay out of state tuition, but California has connections with certain schools and they'll count you as a resident because you're a neighboring, you know, state. So I think that that's it's just the research. It's just forward thinking.
Yep.
But I think that the key for us is having students find that connection. And my goal is that our students have a mindset that they're focused on the future.
Right. Yeah, and there's options, right? And they're gonna obviously they're in fifth and sixth grade. They're gonna go through middle school, they're gonna go through high school, and they're gonna learn all of those different options. But sometimes people don't even like they may be the first student or person in their family to ever even consider college. And so it's not like you said when you were a kid, it's not what college are you going to, or if you were going to college, it's where are you going to college. Some kids don't even have that option, so I think you're instilling that in those future choices. So
So I
um
was the first in my family to go to college. So, that was something that was important to my parents. So they had taken classes. They had both done really well and going straight into, my mom worked in a bank and my dad worked for the water district, and he had taken a lot of classes, but he didn't have that 4-year degree. And that was something that he really wanted for myself and my sister. And so I think that's just giving you options.
yep.
And I think that that's what I want our students to have is what are those options and being successful and making connections.
Yeah.
I can work for something and I can have something that's purely my own. Because
Yeah.
I don't know if you've gone into a store to go buy a college sweatshirt, like they're $60 to $100. Like
Right.
that's pricey.
Yeah.
And so, just kind of having them have something that they can be, excited of.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as we wrap up, Angie, what would you say would be your best social media tip?
I think just kids, because anything that has the kids doing something that they
Yep.
love is really going to connect, with our families. And I think that, when we weren't at school during COVID, and still using social media, but it was like showing a picture of an empty campus, right? And being like, gosh, we miss you guys. We wish you were here. We can't wait for you to be back. So like just showing that connection. And so I think anytime I've got a picture of a student doing something like that just shows joy in learning. And I
Yep.
think we're all looking for ways that we can find joy and make a difference. And so I just think posting often and posting authentic things. I think someone can tell if something is staged
Mhm.
versus just a candid. So I love candid pictures of kids in action.
Yeah. And I got a question for you, Angie. How do you handle being a principal? You said you almost know every student by name, which is awesome. But how do you handle students that maybe can't be pictured on social media? Can you share?
I look at, so we have a list and the parents have to sign, right? Like, yes,
Okay.
my kid can, or no, my kid can't. And so I tend to look at that list and kind of find out, like, hey, so I noticed you said no for social media. I wanted to ask a little more about that. And they're like, well, I don't want them in the picture if it's going to be, on the news, or I don't want them if it's going to be big. But if it's just on our little Instagram page, I'm okay with that. So
Okay.
I think those conversations with families, and then if I'm not sure, I do a lot of back of heads and
Yep.
I do a lot of like over the top, like top
Yeah.
of heads, going down so you're not actually seeing faces.
Sure.
But then really the kids are super excited. And so they tend to know. And if I know I have a kid that can't be in a picture, I try to make sure they're on an end so
Yep.
I can craft a crop and I can make sure that maybe they're not in the post, but they're still in the picture that maybe I print out and post in the NPR.
Yeah. That's really good advice. And I agree. Like if you have a list and being able to make phone calls, usually you can get to the bottom of it and it's like, okay, then you can get that approval. Incredible. We'll share links to your social media sites. We'll get that link to the slide deck and a couple posts
Okay.
of your college wear Wednesdays. If somebody wants to reach out with questions, Angie, what's the best way to get in contact with you?
My email
Okay.
address. So it's just A and then Balius is Balius at ggusd.us.
Okay. And we'll link that in the show notes as well. I hope you have a fantastic school year. I'm excited. Do you usually jump into this activity right away during the school year, like right in September or?
Yeah, so we should be finishing up at least with one of the classes. So we'll have like some fresh posts for everyone to see
Okay.
kind of where we are in the process. I'm trying to think right now. 5 classes for sure that I'll do this with,
Okay.
and just making sure that they have the opportunity to write their letters and get those out there. And really, I focus on upper grade with this lesson. I could do it K6, but again, I really want to focus on my upper grade kids because primary students tend to get involved in everything anyways. And so it's making that connection with our 4th through 6th graders and just helping them to see, okay, I need to do this. I want to do this. And what happens. So we're just looking to grow it. I did it when I was a 6th grade teacher and had my students, and I noticed again, they weren't really into it. So I needed to make an authentic connection, and I want to show them real reasons for writing. And so, I think it's great, but I may not have all 5 classes done by the time, everyone's looking at this, but at least I'll be in the middle of it.
I want to share just an idea. This just came to me, but it's like, this is an incredible idea. But even doing this kind of activity, what if it was with local businesses? Okay. In your community, local businesses, a lot of them have swag. And, there's probably an ability to come up with something like that where you're wearing that maybe once a week. And, local, because there's a lot of people that help support and sponsor the school. So there's a lot of ways that you could work this. But I love these hands-on real experiences that obviously you're learning a ton, but you're making some of those connections. So why not use our students who are our best promoters and our best example of what we're here, about, which is getting them prepared for the future. So I love it. I love this program, and that's why I wanted to have you on. I really appreciate you spending your time with us today, Angie.
Thank you so much for including us and, for reaching out. Like I said, I love to see just this grow. I think it's a great program, and I think that our kids really get so much out of it. So I love it.
Yeah, awesome. And if you decide to start this at your school, Angie would love to hear from you. You guys can share some notes. I mean, we're always looking to get bigger, better, all of the things. So thank you guys for listening in today. We will be back next week with a fabulous guest, fabulous episode. We appreciate you. And until then, keep posting those pictures of those cute kids, that joy in learning. We'll see you next time. Bye, guys.
Bye. Thanks so much.